Imagine walking into a store with no intention of buying anything except a bottle of water, yet 20 minutes later you leave carrying a shopping bag filled with items that were never on your list. Nothing forced the decision, nobody threatened you, and yet the purchase felt completely reasonable in the moment. A few days later, however, the excitement fades, the new item blends into everyday life, and the money is gone. This cycle repeats so often that many people begin to think they simply lack self-control, but the reality is far more interesting. Human spending behavior is shaped by millions of years of evolution, modern marketing, social comparison, and the way our brains process rewards, making unnecessary purchases far less random than they appear. To understand why this happens, it helps to separate needs from wants. A need solves a practical problem, while a want often solves an emotional one. Food prevents hunger, shelter provides safety, and clothing protects us from the environment. Beyond these essentials, many purchases are driven by feelings rather than necessity. A new phone may represent status, a luxury watch may symbolize achievement, and fashionable clothes may provide a sense of belonging. Although these objects have practical uses, the emotional value attached to them frequently becomes the real reason for the purchase. The brain plays a central role in this process. Long before humans developed money, survival depended on recognizing opportunities and acting quickly. Discovering fruit, shelter, or useful tools increased the chances of survival. Each successful discovery activated the brain's reward system, encouraging similar behavior in the future. Modern shopping activates many of these same circuits. Browsing online stores, finding discounts, or anticipating a package arriving at the door creates feelings of excitement because the brain often responds more strongly to anticipation than ownership itself. This explains why many purchases feel most satisfying before they are actually made. The search, the comparison, and the expectation generate a powerful sense of reward. Once the product becomes familiar, that excitement naturally declines. Psychologists often describe this process as hedonic adaptation, meaning people quickly become accustomed to improvements in their lives. The expensive shoes eventually become ordinary shoes, the latest smartphone becomes just another device, and the excitement gradually disappears. As satisfaction returns to its previous level, the brain begins searching for the next source of novelty. Modern businesses understand this pattern exceptionally well. Stores are carefully designed to encourage longer visits because additional time often increases spending. Online platforms remove friction by saving payment information, recommending related products, and creating personalized suggestions based on previous behavior. Limited time offers, countdown timers, and phrases such as "only a few left" introduce a sense of urgency that makes delaying a decision feel risky, even when waiting would have no meaningful consequence. Social influence adds another powerful layer. Humans evolved in groups where social acceptance improved survival. Being excluded from the community could carry serious consequences, so paying attention to the behavior of others became deeply embedded in human psychology. Today, social media amplifies this instinct on a global scale. Every day, people are exposed to carefully selected highlights of vacations, new cars, renovated homes, expensive meals, and luxury products. Even when viewers know these moments represent only a small portion of reality, repeated exposure subtly shifts perceptions of what is considered normal. This creates what economists sometimes call lifestyle inflation. As income grows, spending often expands alongside it. The apartment becomes larger, the vacations become more elaborate, subscriptions multiply, and everyday purchases gradually become more expensive. None of these individual changes feel dramatic, but together they reshape financial habits. Higher earnings alone do not automatically produce greater wealth because expenses often rise at a similar pace. A simple mathematical example illustrates this principle. Imagine someone receives a salary increase of 20%. At first glance, this appears to represent a significant improvement in financial security. However, if housing costs increase because they move into a larger apartment, transportation expenses rise after purchasing a more expensive vehicle, dining becomes more frequent, and monthly subscriptions continue expanding, much of that additional income may disappear. The increase in earnings changes very little if spending adjusts to consume nearly all of it. Behavioral economists have identified another important influence known as present bias. People naturally place greater value on immediate rewards than future rewards, even when delaying gratification would produce a better outcome. Spending money today provides an instant emotional benefit, while saving or investing offers benefits that may not become visible for years. Because the future feels distant and abstract, immediate pleasure often wins unless deliberate systems are put in place to support long-term decision-making. Credit cards further reinforce this tendency by separating the pleasure of purchasing from the discomfort of paying. Handing over physical cash creates an immediate awareness of money leaving one's possession. Digital payments reduce this psychological friction. The transaction becomes almost invisible, making spending feel easier even though the financial reality remains unchanged. Marketing also takes advantage of cognitive shortcuts. A product labeled as 50% off appears attractive even when its original price was artificially inflated. Bundles create the impression of receiving extra value, encouraging larger purchases than originally planned. Free shipping thresholds motivate customers to buy additional products simply to avoid a delivery fee that may be much smaller than the cost of the extra items added to the cart. Perhaps the most important insight is that unnecessary spending is rarely caused by a single weakness. It emerges from the interaction between human biology, emotional needs, social comparison, carefully engineered shopping environments, and economic incentives. These forces influence nearly everyone regardless of education or income because they operate beneath conscious awareness much of the time. Recognizing these patterns does not eliminate them overnight, but awareness changes the decision-making process. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" a more revealing question becomes, "What feeling am I trying to buy?" Sometimes the answer is convenience, sometimes confidence, sometimes belonging, and sometimes simply relief from stress. Identifying the emotional motivation creates space between impulse and action, allowing choices to become more intentional. Money itself is not the ultimate goal. It is a tool that provides flexibility, resilience, and opportunities over time. Every purchase represents more than a financial transaction. It is also a decision about future possibilities. Understanding the psychology behind spending helps transform those decisions from automatic reactions into conscious choices, making financial behavior less about resisting temptation and more about understanding the invisible systems that quietly shape it.